Duke Nukem is a well-known gaming franchise where you play gun-toting Johnny Bravo, blasting his way through many levels of platforming and shooter action. However, there is one title in the series that's known a little bit more than every other one, mainly due to the fact that it took over 15 years to make this game. Today, we are going to dive into developer hell and find out why it took the developers 15 years to create Duke Nukem Forever. Hello! Welcome to Brainspill, the laziest show on the internet. My name is Tank, and yes, we're talking about Duke Nukem Forever, that game that you thought was never, ever gonna come out. To find out how this happened, we need a little bit of a history lesson to get us all up to speed a little bit. In the glamorous year of 1991, Duke Nukem is developed and published for MS-DOS. This game was, well, it was okay, for the time at least. A basic, simple side-scrolling game made by a company called Apogee. Popular enough to then have a sequel, Duke Nukem 2, released in the year 1993, and the first 3D version of the game released in 96, Duke Nukem 3D. This game in particular was particularly popular and certainly, well, was much better than the previous two iterations of the game. I mean, this trailer is just to give you a taste of what Duke Nukem 3D was all about. Yep, this was a game for the ages. Crude, unique, and innovative. Three words that I never thought I'd be saying together in the same sentence, but that is, I think, the only way that you could describe this game. However, you then didn't have any other game in the franchise for quite some time. Yes, there were a few remakes and whatnot, but no true successor to Duke Nukem 3D. With the developers on the face of it simply saying blow it out of your ass when anyone asked for a sequel and when it was due to be released. However, what many people didn't know is that there were many hurdles in the way of preventing the developers from actually making the game they wanted to make. So, it's at this point that we need to introduce you to this man. This is George Broussard. He was a designer and producer for the original two Duke Nukem games, and now he was in a leading role. Being appointed the director for a new potential sequel, what could possibly go wrong? Yes, the sequel, Duke Nukem Forever, was announced on the 7th of April 1997, with an initial release date for winter 1998. Highly anticipated, with small snippets of videos and development photos whipping fans into a frenzy, only to then have, well, not really much more to actually promote this title. One of the main reasons for this was that the engine for the game being used at the time was the Quake engine, which was being handed out like hotcakes to video game developers at the time. However, with the imminent release of Quake 2, why on earth would someone on this development team want to use an outdated engine for their game? They wanted Duke Nukem Forever to be the killer video game successor that they always needed off the back of the success of Duke Nukem 3D. Meaning that the game had to be delayed in order for Duke Nukem Forever to take advantage of that sweet new engine. I mean, on the face of it, that seems pretty reasonable. If you want your product to be the best it can be, why not just wait a little bit longer and get the new engine and then just base your game off that? Seems like a good idea, right? At E3 later that year, video game footage was released for the game which got people excited. However, the engine would soon be changing. No, not from Quake Engine 1 to 2, I mean from 2 to the Unreal Engine. Yes, this was a further engine design change that they wanted to add on top of the first one, meaning that there was an even further delay to the release of the game. You do have to remember, mind you, that this game was due to be released the following winter, so either that they were already well ahead of schedule, or they needed to get some serious crunch time in if they were going to release this game on time. This idea fell back to the premise that Duke Nukem, being a franchise and this being a new sequel, truly was going to be a game of the ages. If you want a game to succeed, why release a half-baked title on an old engine when you can use the shiny new cutting-edge engine for your new Duke Nukem sequel? Might have made more sense for them to have made their own engine, but no, they didn't do that. Yep, back to square one, folks. Let's wrap this up and take it back to basics. We're basically creating an entirely new game here. Again. The year 1998, the year that the game was originally meant to be released, came and went, and there was no real signs of the game being developed, and nothing released for the public to actually find out how far along this game actually was. However, George Broussard was determined that this game was going to be made, and even said that it was due to be released the year after, in the year 1999. And I think you can pretty much guess what happened there. Promises were made, but nothing was fulfilled. People were starting to get a bit curious as to what the hell was going on. A few new screenshots were released which got people a little bit excited, but aside from that, nothing else was really spoken about. 1999 passed without a hint of a finished product in sight. And yes, of course, there was yet another delay, and I'm going to give you the moment to make a decision onto what you think the reason why this was delayed was. Is it either A, that there was a new engine? Was it B, that there was a new engine? Was it C, that perhaps there was a new engine? Or D, that there was a new engine? So yes, if you picked any of those options, you're right, because there was indeed a new engine, which caused a further delay in development. Oh my god, this game is never getting finished. He noted that the Unreal Engine had a new improved version. Not wanting to be left in the dust, the developers used the new engine again. This being the fourth engine chosen for a game that was already way out of budget and behind schedule. By the year 2000, Duke Nukem Forever was still far from complete. As to the success of Duke Nukem 3D, this meant that 3D Realms didn't require any external funding, and they basically didn't have any deadlines due to external pressures, meaning that they could take their sweet ass time with making this game. And this is pretty much the running theme here, the fact that they didn't have any external pressures for them to actually finish the game, and that you had a director that was so invested in making this the perfect sequel. Nothing was ever going to get completed, and every time that you got to a point where the game was almost finished, there would inevitably be some more technology which you could theoretically use to make your game better, but then you'd have to go back to square one again. You can sort of see where the cycle's going here. And during all this time, money was going down the drain. Whilst 3D Realms probably did quite well off the initial game, Duke Nukem 3D, it's not an infinite money bank here. There's only a finite amount of money and time that the studio could theoretically use before they had no choice but to abandon development. This is at the same time as other games in the genre were gaining their footing and taking the throne from Duke Nukem. The longer this went on for, there would be less and less people that would even care about the Duke Nukem franchise. And yes, please just finish this game. I don't even care if it's not good. Just finish it and put us all out of our misery. Please. In December 2000, the rights to publish Duke Nukem Forever were purchased by Take-Two Interactive, with hopes that it would be released on the following year. But they did not account for the tenacity and determination of the director, George Broussard. Problems they would soon run into was pretty much the very insular development cycle around 3D Realms, not hiring enough staff to make the game actually progress quickly enough for it to be released in a timely manner. By 2003, only 18 people were reportedly working on Duke Nukem Forever, so you'd think that there'd be many questions raised how a game could have taken 6 years at this point with no end date in sight. This was confirmed in an interview where Broussard told a journalist that his team had fucked up and were restarting development. This ultimately led to more walkouts and frustration over the following years, leading to a strange period of indefinite development. Yeah, at this point people just kinda had enough. They were pretty much sick of working on the same game for 6 years straight, with no end in sight. However, there were also some other reasons why the studio was struggling to get staff on board to actually make this damn game, and that was the way that they'd agreed their contracts for the funding and salary in their own jobs. This joke from an outsider's perspective is funny, but the staff who were working on the title were doing this as their day job day to day. Developers working on the same game for years, being paid a low amount compared to the industry standard, and were being promised profit sharing agreements once the game was released. And that's the kicker, once the game was released. I wonder how many people even stuck it out for that long, where the game was actually finished. It was by the year 2007 when the pennies started to drop, and perhaps they realised that they were going to start running into some troubles if they didn't get this game off the ground and released, because they realised that the coffers were running particularly low at this point. So they basically hired a whole bunch of new staff and started an aggressive recruitment campaign to try and get a team that could actually get this thing finished. As a result of this, the game had a new trailer released, which was the first trailer released for the game since the year 2001. This was insane, and I think at this point, most people had even forgotten that this game was even in development. I think at this point, most people had just moved on and didn't really care about it anymore. But it was still there trying to crawl out of its pit for some relevancy in this strange new world. In 2009, they realised that they needed capital, and the true relationship between 3D Realms and Take-Two was really beginning to show. Fractured. So much so that they tried to ask for $6 million to complete the project. This was for numerous reasons, including the fact that the game had taken 11 years at this point to make, all of which was down to pretty much the fault of one man. This was rebuffed after a lowball offer was given, and after not being accepted, Bouchard said that the development would immediately stop unless he got his $6 million. So, he didn't get his $6 million, and development stopped. As you might imagine, this game of corporate chicken went on for some time. Who would be the first to blink? I mean, at the end of the day, you've only got so much money left to play with, your options are pretty limited at this point. So, what happened? Well, we don't really know. Nothing kinda happened. It all went quiet after some legal wranglings, and this ceased in September 2010 when Gearbox Software announced that it had just bought the intellectual property rights from 3D Realms and would continue the development of this troubled game. My word, please just let this be over with. On the 24th of May 2011, Gearbox announced that Duke Nukem Forever had gone gold after 15 years. 15 whole years for a game. Holy shit. Yeah, I mean, you can't really blame anyone for saying that. This game had been created and then knocked down and rebuilt more times than you can probably count on a single hand, and now it's finally released for the public to see. So, what did people think about the game that took 15 years to develop? The game was criticised for having tedious level design, outdated and crude humour, poor controls, and long loading times. All of that after 15 years of development. As a matter of fact, just to highlight how long this is, the game actually has the world record for the longest game ever in development. So, there you go. If you liked the video, be sure to like and subscribe. If you want to be notified as soon as I upload my next video, be sure to hit the bell button. And if you've got any ideas for what topics you'd like me to discuss next, let me know down in the comments below. As always, sources used in the video will be in the description. Yep, and that's about it. It's time to kick ass and chew gum. And I'm all out of gum. I'll see you guys in the next video. Fantastic.